The Chip on Your Shoulder by Imogen Hermes Gowar. Rowan's nan is offended by Rowan's loose tunic, knobbly raw silk, navy blue. "A trapeze dress!" she snaps, unhindered by the oxygen tube that loops under her nose. "What's that when it's at home? You don't wear a trapeze. You don't wear a cocoon." "It's nice stuff, Nan, it's cos. I saved up." "You want to take more pride in yourself, Ro. You've got such a pretty figure. Not like your mum." "Why have you got to go dressing up like a little match girl?" "Cut her some slack," says Rowan's dad, who was looking out of the window with his hands in his pockets. "She's come all this way." "Oh, she's a good girl, really." Nan looks little and faded in the hospital bed. The sheets are too white and the windows are too big, letting too much chilly grey light spill in. She's wearing a candy pink Angora cardigan, which smells of her talc. But they've taken all her rings and bracelets off her, and so to Rowan, she looks exposed. Slack, putty-coloured skin and knobbly knuckles and naked, skinny wrists. At home, she'd be ensconced on the couch in her velour dressing gown, surrounded by her souvenir cushions and her carnival glass bright as jellies. She'd have her ashtray shaped like a spaniel. She'd have her little satinette quilt. She'd be okay. Rowan's dad leans against the radiator under the window and gets out his crossword. He's been hanging around the hospital long enough to know that nothing is going to happen very fast, that these are not moments to cling to. Rowan pulls a plastic chair up to Nan's bedside. "I've got you some presents," she says, pulling them from her satchel and laying them on the little tray over the bed. A box of milk tray and some synthetic crushed velvet slippers from Primark, hot pink, to help you feel better. Nan has to shuffle herself more upright to see them, an effort. Her cardigan slips, her hospital gown gapes, and Rowan can see the cannula by her collarbone. But Nan's attention is all absorbed by her presence. She spreads her fingers happily like a small child training tubes. "Oh," she says, "now these are nice, very nice. Where do you find these?" She presses the slippers between her fingers. "Cosy," she clucks. "You're a good girl." She is greedy always for the cheapest sort of opulence. Faux fur, creme de menthe, the porcelain figurines advertised in the back of her weekly magazines. It's easy to make her happy. £10, well spent. "Where are you living now, Ro?" "You'll never guess." Rowan clasps her hands in her lap. "Well then, save me the trouble." "Deptford." "Deptford?" Her usual disbelieving squawk. "Why do you want to do that?" "Well, my studio's there. It's cheap. It's nice." "Don't tell me about Deptford. I know all about Deptford. Grew up there, didn't I?" "I know you did." "Nice," she says. "No, I remember Deptford. Our family lived there ever since there were houses to live in. Hundreds of years." "Really? Hundreds?" "Well, who can know? Who's writing it down?" She fumbles at the buttons of her cardi to hide the bits of plastic sticking out of her skin. "We had a veg stall on the market. We lived Poland Street. It was called 34 Poland Street, behind the High Street, with Auntie Mary next door and our Kathleen round the corner. None of it's there anymore. Council pulled it all down when your dad was a little boy. Slums, is what they said. Not fit for habitation. No eating, no toilets, none of that. We had to fetch water from the pump." She is plucking at the bedsheets. The backs of her hands are puckered with surgical tape and dark with a bloom of pooled blood. "You don't need to worry about me, Nan. I've got running water." "Well, some people like it. My dad, he wouldn't leave. They'd given him £1,000 to move out. Back then, mind, that's real money. But he didn't want to go. There were rats and no street lights, but he said no. He couldn't leave his stall. Not that it belonged to him anymore. They fixed him up with a nice new flat, a proper kitchen, no damp. He couldn't get his head round it. He'd never lived in a block of flats before, said Rowan's dad, not looking up. He was an old man. He didn't know anyone there. It wasn't fair. Better than leaving him to rot. He died within the year, says Rowan's dad. Nan turns back to Rowan. I don't know what you want to live there for. It's really different now. Oh, I'll take your word for it. But later, when it's time for Rowan's dad to drive her back to the station, and Nan clasps her hands in her little dry fingers and says, fancy you living in Deptford. We spend 60 years dragging ourselves out of there, and you with your foreign artery, you turn around and go straight back. And Rowan cannot tell if she is disappointed or pleased. In the morning, Rowan makes coffee on the stove. She lives in a flat over the fish shop on the high street, and she likes to lean on the windowsill and watch the market traders setting up their stall. They're calling to one another, shouting and laughing over the beep of reversing vans and the crash of scaffolding. Out the back, Mr. Ramachandran and his sons carry in polystyrene cartons of today's deliveries. There are chips of ice scattered on the tarmac of the loading bay, sparkling as they melt. A jangle of keys at the front door, and Rowan's housemate Etta lets herself in, her arms full of box files. She is studying for a PhD at Goldsmiths. She wears horn-rimmed glasses and a kente headscarf. Her lipstick is cherry red. Oh, you can't get anything photocopied round here anymore, she says. You can, says Rowan. Across the road from the station there's a copy shop. No, it's gone. It's all been turned into studios. There's a raw food cafe. Christ, what's happening to this place? Don't ask me, you're part of the problem. And what about you? Etta rips open a packet of kimchi. At least I'm from round here, she remarks. I'm from round here. You're from Manningtree. Etta finds a fork and eats straight from the packet. Yeah, but my nan was born here. We are old Deptford. What are you? Second generation? Right. You know how my dad managed to find a place here when he first arrived from Ghana? Because people like your nan had all shipped out. They didn't want to be here anymore. You're saying you'd be living here even if it weren't getting gentrified to fuck? You're saying you would? Etta is laughing. At least I'd stand a chance of getting my photocopying done. Anyway, I bet I know more about this place than you do, little Miss Old Deptford. Do you want to know a fact? Okay. Rowan sips her coffee. Etta hicks at her kimchi. So, she says, way back when, in the 18th century, Deptford was a pretty wealthy place. Everybody worked at the dockyards building the ships. They were highly skilled craftsmen. So, one of the little perks was to take away all the leftover wood. Great big beams, some of them, from building these battleships. And these leftover bits of wood were called chips. Got it? Right. They used to build their houses from them sometimes. This house was probably built using chips. This house was definitely built the same way you build a ship. Rowan looks around the kitchen. Somewhere underneath the smooth tiles and laminate floor are the hefty beams pegged tightly together. If your people lived here back then, they probably worked in the dockyard. Now, the Admiralty didn't like a lot of the ways these Deptford people worked, and they especially didn't like them taking the chips away. They tried to crack down on them, and the dockyard workers unionised. Nobody did that back then. The Navy sent troops in to deal with them. So if you, Rowan, have a chip on your shoulder, then you're a Deptford dockyard worker standing up to the man, taking what's yours. Oh, I like that. The things you don't know about your hometown, huh? Rowan rinses her mug. I'm going to the studio, she says. I'll walk with you. I'm on a quest for Deptford's last surviving photocopier. The flat is part of a little warren of tenements. Rowan and Etta must walk a draughty corridor with narrow staircases that leap off it at unexpected corners. It gives out onto a flat roof covered in decking, where tenants keep their potted geraniums and their fixed-gear bicycles. And then there is a dark concrete staircase down to the street. It's busy now. The pavement's half covered with market stalls, so passers-by pick their way through slowly, in single file. African women swathed in Ankara prints, hipsters with their string bags and Breton tops, stooped men as old as Nan. Had they always lived here? Would they remember her? There are bin bags and crates of rubbish piled by lampposts to be taken away, and bits of stray fruit in the gutter, pulpy plums too far gone to sell, grapes that have tripped off their stalks. Let's get off the pavement, Etta says, and they dart down the gap between two canvas-walled stalls to walk in the middle of the road where there's more space. Under blue tarpaulin awnings, they are selling remaindered Topshop dresses and Xbox games. "Thieves, don't waste your time," a handwritten sign above them says. "Display boxes are empty." "Still thinking about those ship houses," says Rowan. The buildings behind the stalls and shop fronts are crooked and grimy, with net curtains at some of the windows and others blocked by stacks of boxes within. "See how brown they are? There was money here once," says Etta. It's true that behind the shops, convenience and value, Silk Road Asian supermarket, pound shop, there are handsome barrelled fronts and broad sash windows rotting away. Up above, the cranes are pivoting slowly. "There's money here again," said Rowan. She and Etta stopped to look at the posters on the hoardings. A brand new complex of 1- and 2-bed luxury flats. Private gym facilities and an underground car park. That's that then. We're priced out. Where will we go next? I think there's only Catford left. Start getting used to it. The other half of the market, past the hot dog van and the man who auctions bolts of fabric to a gathering crowd, is all house clearance stuff. Saucepans and alarm clocks and piles of old coats. Etta peels off to inspect a box full of Pyrex teacups. Rowan picks through a stack of art books, their pages crimped and speckled with mould. She finds an old roses tin full of somebody's sewing kit, wooden cotton reels neatly tucked together, a green felt needle case, scissors and an unpicker in white plastic sheets. There's a simplicity pattern for a pleated knee-length skirt, size 16, and scrawled on it in biro is somebody's name. Philomena, Rowan reads. She reaches out to grab Etta's elbow. "Look at this. Do you think everything on this table is her stuff?" "Probably," says Etta. "She's been to Sharm el-Sheikh on holiday, look." She holds up a little bottle layered with different colours of sand. "She bought a yoghurt maker 30 years ago and never took it out of its box." "Do you think she's dead now?" "I suppose so. Or in a home." There are tears prickling the backs of Rowan's eyes. "It's so sad. Why is all her stuff here? Didn't she have family who wanted it?" "What? Her collection of cotton reels, her rolls of undeveloped film, her crappy 70s sherry glasses? They're not exactly heirlooms, are they?" "They were hers. Maybe nobody cared about her at the end. Maybe they knew what to let go of. It's just stuff. Stuff is important." Rowan wants to gather up everything on the stall, to piece Philomena back together from the detritus of her life. All these things are going to get spread about, and then nobody will remember who she was. Etta rolls her eyes. "You don't know who she was. Come on, let's get out of here." They walk up the high street arm in arm, passing the building that used to be a job centre, but which is now called a bar called Job Centre. "Poor people, go away," hisses Etta. "If you can't be ironic about unemployment, we don't want your sort." Outside the church, a laminated sign, "All the lead from this roof has already been stolen." Rowan's phone starts to ring. It's my dad. She stares at the screen. You going to answer it? No. She flips it to ignore. But as soon as she makes to return it to her pocket, it starts to buzz again, angry in her palm. I know what he's going to say. She hits ignore again, and again. Bzz, bzz, bzz. They are standing together on the pavement, saying nothing, their heads bent over the screen. "You've got to pick it up," said Etta, her hand on Rowan's shoulder. "No, I haven't. I think it's an emergency." But Rowan has already shoved it into her pocket and she is walking fast, away from the church, her feet dodging squashed hot dog rolls and flyers for hot yoga. Etta is chasing after her, but Rowan can't turn around. She just keeps walking until she gets back to the market. She is casting about for the round blue tin, the collection of useless junk that is about to be dispersed. "How much do you want for this?" she asks the stallholder. He casts a cursory glance over it. He glances at Rowan too. "Pound to you? You want a bag?" "No, that's okay." She is clutching it to her chest with both arms. She starts to run between the market stalls, between the tall, ship-built houses. She holds the tin so close she can feel her heartbeat hammering through it.